Thanks for joining us for GK Visual Podcast. I am joined with Peter Katz of Iron City Distilling, president of Iron City Distilling. Thanks so much for joining me.
Yeah,
here.
Thanks for having me.
GK Visual, we're jumping into a whole new project here for us. We've done a lot of beer projects in the past with Port and PA, and our new venture is telling the story of Pennsylvania's history with whiskey. And when I say Pennsylvania's history, it's actually American history because of where whiskey really got its birth. Do you want to tell me a little bit about Iron City Distilling and how that even came about?
Sure. Our owner, Cliff Forrest, bought Pittsburgh Brewing back 2019 and decided he wanted to do a distilling as well. So we're located at Creighton, PA, about 12 miles north of Pittsburgh. They renovated a building from the late 1800s, which is the original PPG plant that houses the brewing company. And then the boiler house, which sits right behind the brewery, is where we are. And they spent some time with Matt Strickland, our master distiller. He was a consultant on the project. And after getting a lot of his guidance, decided that there's no better person to lead the project than Matt.
So when Matt was brought in, he wasn't originally thought to be who was going to be the distiller. He was more of a consultant on the project.
He was a consultant on the project. He's done a lot of consulting. He still does. And, they kind of asked him to write down what the ideal master distiller would be. And Matt kind of wrote his own resume. And they went searching for the perfect fit and came back to Matt and said, we can't find anyone. Then they started talks, and
that's great.
Then next thing, Matt was on board.
And a lot of people probably know the legacy of Iron City Icy Light, and it's kind of woven into the fabric of Pittsburgh.
Absolutely.
Have people understood now that there is a distillery attached to this?
We're making progress there.
Okay.
People, even our building sits behind the brewery, and you come up Route 28, and there's this huge American flag catches your attention first. Then the brewery building with all the logos, and kind of tucked behind there is our building and our logo is pretty big on top too. But more and more as people start coming to the distillery, they're like, we didn't even know you were here, so we do get a lot of that.
Do people understand what you're doing there with distilling, or is that still...
Some do.
Okay.
We're slowly getting the word out of what's going on, and like you said, with the history of rye. When Matt came into the project, he kind of looked at what everyone else was doing, Liberty Pole specifically, and they kind of focused on Whiskey Rebellion time frame. Mm-hmm. So Matt decided that for the better of all, that we should focus on a little different time frame and each have a piece of history. So we're focusing our rye production from like 1860 to Prohibition, more like the kind of the golden era of rye in our area, doing different mash bills. Matt's really focused on kind of pushing the category and not just doing what everyone else does. So we have 100% rye recipe, 50% malted, which is after the old Possum Hollow Distillery, which is a local distillery. And when you really look at how many distilleries were in our area at that time, it's mind-boggling.
So you found old mash bills that you're recreating?
Yeah, so Old Possum Hollow is the mash bill that Matt followed, which is a unique story. The gentleman that owned that distillery was also in the coal business, which is Cliff's and our owner's in the coal business. So it was kind of a unique tie that was surprising.
Well, you're touching on kind of the part of history that you guys are trying to, I don't want to say replicate, but model what you're doing. Can you talk a little bit? I know it's more than just the mash bill. There's a lot more that goes into that period of time.
There's a handful of checkpoints, so to speak, of what was happening back then, and we touch on almost all of them. Probably the biggest one that no one else has really done is the 3-chamber still and the chamber still. That was the type of still they used back then. And so we're the one of 2 in the country, 3 in the world that have a 3-chamber still. And it's gloriously inefficient, is kind of our saying. So it's very labor intensive. It eats up utilities. It was very expensive, but it creates very unique distillate, new make. That's we're very excited of what it's going to produce for us once it's aged in a barrel. Everyone has only done rye on there. We just started running some bourbon through there, so we're going to be interested to see how that plays through as well. So the 3-chamber still, the biggest difference in how it produces, is it operates at about 4 to 5 psi. So the pot still operates at atmospheric pressure, but that extra pressure allows us to pull out things out of the grain that the pot still can't. So
you're getting a lot more oil
and flavor, just the unique flavors coming out of it. The new make, if you put it in your hand, I think you guys did.
Yeah.
It almost feels like you have lotion on your hand. It's so oily. It's really we're really excited to see how it ages, because we think in the barrel it's going to just really take off.
You're exactly right. We got to visit, and Matt let us both smell and taste and feel the new make, and it's unlike anything I've had at any other distillery.
When you taste it side by side with that pot still, it's amazing the differences.
Yeah.
So that's one point. We have a steam heated warehouse, which is what they had steam heated warehouses back in the late 1800s. So we keep it as 75 or higher year round. We also invested in some 40-gallon barrels. The majority of our barrels are 53-gallon, but we did want to, back then they used smaller barrels. From what the research Matt did, 38 to 42-gallon barrels. So we settled in around 40 gallons. Barrel Mill out in Minnesota did a special cooper for us. It's custom, all the way. They're not cheap. And then the grain itself, we use all heirloom grains with our rye, the Rosen Rye, Seed Spark project, brought that back, and it's the closest relative to what was being grown in our area back then. And, we're super excited with the quality of the Rosen Rye.
And that's coming pretty local to you guys.
That's grown right at the northern part of Bedford County, right on the edge of Cambria County, kind of near 30 minutes northwest of Omni, Bedford Springs. So all of our grain's local. When we get it malted, it's local. So we definitely stay local as well, which is always a good point. And back then, you couldn't bring in oak. We do all Pennsylvania oak. It is coopered down in West Virginia, but we asked them to only use Pennsylvania oak, because back then they wouldn't have been able to move oak around the country.
Sure.
We do a sweet mash, which is, again, for the era. We cook at lower temperatures, and then we go into the barrel at a lower proof. We're going in at 101, which is really low compared to, a lot of the distillers out there.
Could you describe the difference between a sweet and sour mash?
Yeah, that's more of a distiller question. Okay. But basically, with the sour mash, they take a piece of that mash and set it back in there, and it kind of balances out pH and all that. And sweet mash starts from fresh every time.
Yeah. I'd love to talk a little bit about Matt's background, your distiller.
Sure.
You mentioned him. The times I've gotten to sit down with Matt, he's just like it's like an encyclopedia of knowledge in the industry, and I believe does a lot of teaching and consulting.
He does teaching,
and writing,
consulting, and he's written a couple books. Yeah, he's obviously a huge piece, and what he's doing, kind of pushing the category, is amazing stuff. We went to ADI back in August in Baltimore. He has speaking roles there, and a lot of very well-known distillers are coming up and say, Matt, and coming to his breakout sessions. And it was kind of enlightening to see how excited some of these people were to see Matt and how much of an impact he has on the industry.
Well, that's part of the landscape today, and I think part of the reason we're trying to tell this story now is that the quality of whiskey being produced and the people that are behind it now have really raised the bar here in Pennsylvania, which maybe 20 years ago or even less than that, 10 years ago, people would have not have given Pennsylvania whiskey a second thought. But now, what you guys are doing, and a lot of other people, to bring Pennsylvania rye back, we feel we all need to work together to really rise the tide. And I think we all kind of have that attitude to work together. Especially, we talked to the Huffs from Liberty Pole and Herman from Dad's Hat and Stahl and Wolf. Just a lot of great things going on in Pennsylvania. Your background is in beverage as well. What brought you to Iron City from where you were at?
I was with Southern Glazers for 25 years on the distribution side, and Cliff, the owner, had kind of met some people that threw out my name, and we made the connection and took a tour, and I was sold on day one, and so it started that day, and just tasting the new make and listening to what was going on and seeing it. I mean, you've been there. try and put into words what it's like at our place.
Well, I described to I took some buddies out and did a little tour of our own out in Western Pennsylvania and hit a bunch of distilleries, and everybody's doing something great, but they're all very different. And we went to one distillery, and I said, "This is you're gonna taste some great product." And then we're going to go to Iron City tomorrow, and that's going to be like Disney World of distilling.
Yeah, it's it's a unique position to be in. Cliff, has a very successful businessman and has a lot of businesses, and he doesn't hold back when he wants to do it right. He wants to do it the right way, and that puts us in a very unique position from a financial perspective compared to some of the other groups out there.
Yeah, and I love, not only is it beautiful and big and somewhat flashy, that the product coming out of it is exceptional.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's the whole package. It's the experience of coming out, and even just the brewery itself is a world-class facility as well. So most of our tours, you go through the brewery to get to the distillery, and you see the the brew house floor and the packaging line of the brewery. It's again, it's hard to put into words. Yeah, I still been there. It'll be coming up on a year here in a couple months, and I still walk through and kind of pinch myself and feel like I'm Willy Wonka walking through this chocolate factory every day, yeah. And it's like it's just surreal sometimes.
Yeah, it's really neat. Talk to me a little bit about we're touched on the history here, but why is Pennsylvania so unique with whiskey history?
Well, I mean,
we don't have to go into every corner of it, but
I mean, going back to Whiskey Rebellion's like right in our backyard. So, the David Bradford House, I actually went to Washington and Jefferson, and I didn't even know about the David Bradford House until, probably around 2005, 2006. They lost some funding, and a guy named Tripp, I can't think of his last name, but Tripp somehow got a meeting with me and said, we lost funding and we got to figure out how to keep this place alive. It was basically the roots of the Whiskey Rebellion Festival. We started a dinner that Fred No came and was the guest speaker, and it became an annual thing, and then that grew. Tracy came on board and just took it to another level and grew it into the Whiskey Rebellion Festival, and now all that attention to Western Pennsylvania has been really great. So so the Whiskey Rebellion, just all the distilleries, even a little bit north of us in Freeport, I'd heard about just how many distilleries are in that area, and when you start seeing names and seeing Large and Old Possum Hollow, just all you see all these names, and you're just the amount of history in the area is it's overwhelming.
Do you guys have you come across any bottles or anything from Old Possum?
We have not. We've we've looked at different ways of incorporating that into some of the brands down the road, but we have not acquired any. It was actually Thomas More was the name of and there's Thomas More that's,
and somebody has that name,
part of Sazerac.
Yeah.
It's two different people.
Oh, okay.
It's because Thomas More in Kentucky, I believe he started the 1792.
Gotcha. Okay.
Like the distillery that was in Bardstown right there. And this Thomas More obviously is over here, Coal Mine, and
there's a lot of crossover between Pennsylvania and Kentucky, and a lot of the Beams came through.
Absolutely, most of those big distillers started in whether it's Eastern Pennsylvania, a lot of Bucks County, Old Overholt started in Bucks County and moved out our way. That's one of those small world stories. My dad, when he retired, he's real into genealogy and called me up. He said, "Don't you sell Old Overholt?" Because I sold the Beam portfolio for many years. I said, "Yeah, I sell Old Overholt." And he said, "We're related to them." So he had tracked back about 8 generations back and went through the family tree. And Abraham's sister was my 7th generation grandmother. Wow. So it was kind of funny.
Well, we're sitting here with some whiskey royalty. I love it. Yeah,
it's a little tie to the Overholt family.
Well, I would assume people, especially in Western Pennsylvania, they probably have ties to coal mining and they have ties to distilling. I would think that was so prominent.
Absolutely.
At one time.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and then steel.
Steel, obviously,
And Frick, Frick was obviously the coke and the coal.
Henrik Clay Frick.
Yep, and he was part of the Overholt.
Yeah. So we're going to tell this story about whiskey. Setting out to do a documentary project, and we've collected a lot of different perks for people to help do fundraising. And one of the ones I wanted to mention is one that you guys have generously offered. Do you want to talk a little bit about what that experience is like?
Sure. Yeah, we've been trying to think of experiences that no one else does, or just unique things that we can do to really immerse. And it's almost similar to what you guys did when you picked the barrel. But we bring very limited. We usually limit it to about 10 seats, and we do the first Friday of every month, and we call it Drill and Dine, or Dine and Drill. So you get a very in-depth walk through of the distillery. Matt talks through the whole process. It's Matt and I working together. Then we bring in a really nice lunch, and we have lunch we have some cocktails and some tastings, and that's always a part of anything we do almost. And
you have the most beautiful spot in the distillery.
Yeah, I mean our mezzanine overlooks the distillery, and it's just, you're just immersed right in there. And I'd put it up against any tasting room out there. It's a beautiful spot. And it's like I said, it's immersed in the distillery. There's a lot of beautiful spaces, and it's like the distillery is a different building, in another area, whatever. So then after that, we head into the rick house and we get a drill, and we just ask people, what's your birthday, or what, pick out some barrel numbers. What are your interests? And we just start drilling into barrels and taste do make whiskey. And, we've had people do it that have done many tours and visited lots of distilleries, and they're just like, this is a one of a kind experience that they've never had before. We're climbing up onto the 6th tier, and we put a hole in there, and they got to hold their glass and catch the whiskey in their glass, and we try and make it make it fun and
something they'll never experience.
Yep, in and out. Even we're tasting barrels. A lot of times, our acts will hit the barrels and taste barrels that are on the front row, and like sometimes we don't always sneak into all the nooks and crannies. So that even for us, it's with the last group, before we invested in more of the 40-gallon barrels, we had 3 barrels made. And when I first started, Matt and I tasted that, and we were like, it's not really coming along like we thought. We thought it might be a little faster, and then so it's been probably about 6 or 7 months. But someone said, what about one of those 40-gallon barrels? Everything else we laid down was too young, so we said, let's tap into one of those, and we tapped in, and man, in those last 6-7 months, it really progressed, and we were just super excited about how it progressed. So just trying, we did a mix of bourbons, and we have some other unique things in there, Triticale, Aristook variety, and then this past group, we have a very unique American single malt program as well, so we pulled some American single malt samples, and people were really, really impressed with that.
That's great. So if anybody's interested, you can just go to our Indiegogo campaign, and you can find that experience. And,
cool.
And grab that for yourself.
Yep.
Talk to me a little bit about the different projects you do have going on. We talked about rye, bourbon, but gin is also fantastic.
Yeah, gin. Our gin is award-winning. Again, when Matt came, it was not really set up to do gin, and the story that goes that Cliff, the owner, got gifted a bottle of gin, and he really liked it. And Matt came in one day, and Cliff's sitting there with the bottle of gin, and said, Matt, what's it going to take to make gin? And Matt said, well, we got to get another still. And Cliff said, all right, make it happen. So moved into gin, and we've been real successful with it. That'll be when we... Right now, everything's kind of under Iron City Distillers Reserve, and when we go to market, it's going to be under the brand Bessemer, which is we're slowly getting that out, and we're working on kind of a marketing campaign on how to introduce that. So you're almost one of the first podcasts to really get that name out there.
Exclusive there, I love it. Yeah.
So that'll be the first thing it rolls out, and Matt added a lemon drop hops to the botanicals as kind of a homage to our beer side. Gives it a citrus note. It's a very balanced juniper. So it is a London dry style, but it's delicious. Even last night, people were tasting it and just like, oh my gosh, this gin's great. So
yeah, we were at an event at the Hilton here in town last night, and you were pouring samples, and I actually had my wife try some, and she's just like the floral on this and the citrus. It's unlike a lot of gin.
It's really good. Yeah. Other projects we have going on, we because of the beer history, we're learning things, and I didn't know this until recently, but Iron City Pittsburgh Brewing had their own cooperage back in the early 1900s and pre-Prohibition. So all the beer kegs back then were wood, and they're making their own, and we have pictures of it, and we have a historian that works with us and collects a lot of historical pieces from that time frame. So we have multiple barrels, but we took one and and it's from pre-prohibition, and got it recoopered out in Minnesota, and we're going to age some rye whiskey in there, it's going to be like a double barrel age type thing. And that's going to be that's a very unique and exciting thing that that we can tie in.
That's a piece of history being kind of remade here. I love that. Yeah.
And we're going to be interviewing the coopers that took it apart and kind of their story. And they said it was one of the most exciting projects they've done in a long time. And the wood is really thick, so I think
I was going to say, what kind of shape are barrels in from that period of time?
They're in pretty good shape. I mean, it doesn't even look like they took it apart. I don't know how they did it. And so we had water in it the other day, and it's holding everything. So I think probably this week the whiskey's going to go in it. We're going to Barrel Mill sent it back in we call it a treasure chest. They built this box to send it back, and it's amazing. It looks great. So I think we're going to kind of move it around and kind of make it like an Easter bunny type thing. It's kind of and kind of be like oh there it is, and kind of keep make some fun out of that part about it as well. So
how long do you think you'll let something sit in there?
It's going to depend on taste profile, but if I think we're talking like a 4 to 6 months period, and kind of see where it's at.
Do they char that then too, or?
Yeah, I think they did a toast. I'm not exactly sure and I'm kind of curious to see, but I believe they did a toast and a
because a beer barrel wouldn't necessarily have any. Would they have had charred or anything?
Probably not from that era, and but like I said, it's the wood's so thick that I think they were able to do a toast and a char.
Okay.
Yeah,
that'll be really interesting.
Yep.
And then outside of even just all the great beer and spirits that you guys produce, you guys have a lot of great events at the distillery, and I'm very jealous that you're on the other side of the state, and maybe this summer we'll have to make it out. But if you want to talk a little bit about any of that.
Yeah, so events in the distillery, we're going to kind of shut down for the summer because we have so many of the large events surrounding here. But we've been doing acoustic nights every Saturday and having local acts who bring in crowds from there, so we've had a group from Deer Lakes, we're in East Deer, so it's, and they bring a nice crowd. So we're just continuing to grow that. And then we try and do some unique things. We've done some cocktail classes. We do pairing events, which have been real successful. We do some chocolate, and we're always trying to collab with locals. So Valos Chocolates, we have a whiskey turtle that we serve with our samplings, and people love those, and they do a great job with that. So we paired up with them. We have barbecue, which you experienced down the street with Tastefully Blessed.
Barbecue,
and then so our next pairing event is with baklava, which we have a baklava maker right across the river that the stuff's delicious.
Okay.
And,
so I grew up with a Greek aunt, and so baklava was always part of every. It was so rich. We were like, wow, can we get smaller pieces? But we already sold a decent amount of tickets for that one. I think that's going to be a sellout pretty quick. I think we're trying to be creative. We're looking for a local donut maker, and we're going to do some donut pairings and just have some fun with it. And then tying in, we're doing whiskey straight up. So our 3.8 of 23 was our first barrel laydown. So we now have 2-year-old straight whiskey. So we're going to kind of like Drill Dine, but with a bigger crowd, and have dinner and drill into some 2-year-old barrels and share it with people so they can see where we're at. We're doing a Derby pre-party and getting Kentucky Derby fair food and just trying to have fun and get people out to enjoy the space. And once people get in our space, they just sit there and kind of there's a lot to look at.
Yeah, and they're just wow. They're just like, this is just comfortable. It's they don't want to leave. We gotta and we're just gonna keep inviting people in and seeing what we're doing.
And then a big concert series as well.
Yeah, so we probably gonna have 4 to 6 major concerts, like national headline concerts. Right now, the only ones that are confirmed are Alabama, which is Father's Day weekend, and then Blues Travelers, Gin Blossoms, Spin Doctors are in July. There's a couple other big names, and it takes a while with all the riders to get everything finalized, but some other big names will be coming out. But the brewery side does a car cruise, which had about 8,000 people on property last year. Glory Days, which is a motorcycle show, basically. So they're constantly doing very large events, and we have 43 acres nestled right on the river. When people come out for the concerts and the car cruises and Oktoberfest, and you're just hanging out in a big space along the river. And
it is crazy looking out there, all that area that you guys have.
It's people set their chairs up along the river and just listen to good music and drinking good beer and spirits, and it's just
we'll have to get our team out there. It sounds like a great time.
Absolutely.
And last, I just want to talk about where people can find the product.
So we're constantly working on that. With the gin, we're kind of focusing on that with the on-premise and the restaurants, and we're slowly building up a bunch of cocktail lists for people. So Juniper and Atria's just added it here in Pittsburgh. Moonlit Burgers, which is always voted as one of the best burgers. They do cocktails. Scratch up on the north side. Local Provisions down in Fox Chapel. We have a lot of places we're just continuing to grow it, and they're seeing how mixable it is. And it's a cocktail. When it's in a cocktail, people reorder it because it just really lends to being mixable and enjoyable. And then we do some rye in a 750 as well. Kind of similar package to your single barrel. And we're slowly getting that out there as well, but mostly on premise at the distillery is where the majority of our sales are. We're going to do some festivals and some farmers markets and stuff throughout the summer. But
do you ship?
We do ship with MPA. Yep, they can order online. That really hasn't taken off much.
Yeah.
We've probably had only 5 or 6 orders like that, but with MPA, it's an easy sell. We just joined up with BevRock, which is more for the on-premise, mostly geared towards breweries that can only sell PA products, and they have an online marketplace for the breweries to order PA products, and so we'll see how that goes.
We I'll do a little plug here for the barrel that we got to pick here in Harrisburg for the Hilton that is now available at the Hilton, and that. It was a finished rye. White
port. Yeah.
White port barrels,
Which is not a typical finishing barrel. I think you guys saw it when we did 3 of those and we immediately sold all 3. It's and we had some other finishes and they're all really good, but there's just something unique about the white port that's the color, like you said last night. We got a glass, and the color's great. It's mixable. The Sazerac that they made last night was spot on. That was delicious.
I had one of those last night, and then I drank it on its own, and they are just two different experiences. Obviously, but both worked so well. Yeah.
Absolutely. And when you guys were going through that process, there was another barrel that was, I want to say it was just a PA rye, no finish, and everyone just kind of settled in on this is so unique and different than anything we've done that we wanted to go with that one. And I think that was the right choice.
It was a tough decision though. I mean,
they were all pretty
bounced
good.
between a few there that was and when you're trying to pick a barrel, obviously you got to figure out how it's going to be used, and it's going to be used in a cocktail or on its own. And but it was a great pick.
Yeah, doing the single barrel process is another really fun thing to do, especially it's like you're walking through and you're trying to understand what, like you said, what are you going to do more cocktails straight? You're going to give it out as gifts, all these things, and we've sold a decent amount of barrels already, and that's another really fun process. And you really, again, just it's close and intimate, and you get to know your people and understand, and it's a great process, and we'll continue to do that. We've kind of 2 programs. The finished whiskey that Matt made from DC is readily available. We can have that done.
We should touch on that because you guys are in a unique position that Matt was able to bring product in.
So another commitment of Cliff, the owner, was not to buy any contract whiskey. And companies, there's a lot of opportunities out there for companies to start a whiskey company that they don't make the whiskey, they contract it in, which is, it doesn't mean it's bad whiskey, but they didn't make it. And Cliff was like, I don't believe in that. Like we're gonna make our whiskey and we're gonna let it age. But Matt's 2 projects ago, the District Distilling Company in DC was having some financial troubles, and there was an opportunity to pick up a couple hundred of their barrels, and Matt's handwriting's on it, and so everyone was comfortable with, hey, Matt made this stuff. This isn't like going to a big contract supplier and bringing it in. So we brought that in. So we have aged whiskey, and that's what we're selling at the distillery now. in barrels and stuff like that. And then we have our everything we've made on site. And we have a program called the Futures Program with that. So people can purchase, taste some barrels. They can purchase it. We have like an upfront cost, and we do an annual aging fee, and then we'll have like a bottling and handling fee when it's ready to bottle. And we take samples out, and enough samples out to do 5 years worth of birthdays, and every birthday they can get a flight of 1 year versus 2 year, and then 1, 2, and 3, and be able to taste all those whiskeys and kind of see how they grew through the years, and decide when they want to put it in a barrel. So we've sold a few of those, and again, I think it's just a matter of kind of getting the word out and letting people see what we have available to do a program like that.
I really appreciate you talking through all this. We've hit sort of our time limit here, so I appreciate all the time. And a lot of times I sit here and I'll sample while we're talking, but I enjoyed so much of it last night, and we're recording here in the morning that we're leaving it in the bottle. But that was
kind of like what happened at the barrel pick too, wasn't it?
Well, that did happen there as well, yeah. So we definitely enjoy this product, and it's been one of our favorites that we've gotten into. And
we're proud. Yeah, we're proud of everything. Yeah, I mean I've collected whiskey and tasted a lot of whiskey, and even some of the whiskey reviewers out there, taste our young whiskey and kind of like for the age it's at, it's some of the best new make whiskey I've ever tasted.
Lou Bryson, who's a friend, he said the same thing to me when I was starting down this path of trying to find people to talk to. He said it's some of the best new make I've ever had straight up.
Well, speaking of Lou, we're going to do an event with Lou and Sam Komlenik in October. So keep posted for, it's going to be October 18th, and we're going to have them on a little panel and have some fun with some.
That'd be a great event.
Yeah, that's going to be great. And then after that, we'll have some food and bring on some live music and make a whole day out of it. That'll be fun.
All right.
So I'll put that on your calendar.
We'll do it. All right, Peter. Well, thanks so much for joining me, and
appreciate it. Thank you.
Visiting again.
All right. Thanks.